Yeah, I do. I do get nervous. Yeah, but I was excited about the music. I don't want to, just focus on them.
Diane Keaton has always been known for her bright smile, quirky sense of humor, and unforgettable performances. For decades, she lit up the screen with her charm in movies like Annie Hall, The Godfather, and Something's Gotta Give. To the public, she seemed like the kind of woman who had it all: beauty, success, and an unshakable confidence that made her stand out in Hollywood. But behind her laughter and stylish hats, Diane was quietly fighting battles that no one could see. Her journey was not as perfect as people imagined. It was filled with deep emotional pain, self-doubt, and heartbreaking struggles that shaped her into the woman the world admired. She was not only fighting for her career but also for her own sense of worth. The more the world praised her, the lonelier she felt inside. The woman who made millions laugh was often crying alone behind closed doors. Her story is not just one of fame, it's one of survival, resilience, and the quiet suffering that even the brightest stars hide from the world. Diane Keaton was born Diane Hall in 1946 in Los Angeles, California. From a young age, she admired her mother, Dorothy, who once competed in beauty contests and encouraged Diane to dream big. But even in childhood, Diane felt a pressure to be perfect. She wanted to please everyone: her parents, her teachers, and later, her audience. As a teenager, she developed a strong interest in acting and singing. She dreamed of being on stage, where she could escape from her insecurities. After high school, she moved to New York City to study at the neighborhood Playhouse School of the Theater. It was there that she changed her last name to Keaton, borrowing her mother's maiden name to stand out professionally. But life in New York was far from glamorous. She often struggled to pay rent, worked odd jobs, and went hungry at times. Still, her passion for performing never faded. She began performing in small theater productions, and later got her big break in the Broadway musical Hair. This role opened the doors to Hollywood, but along with fame came new pressures that would slowly take a toll on her mind and body. Diane's life changed completely when she met filmmaker Woody Allen. Their partnership was magical, both professionally and personally. Allen cast her in Play It Again, Sam, and soon after, in Annie Hall, which became a cultural phenomenon. Her natural charm, awkward humor, and unique fashion sense made her a Hollywood icon. Diane won an Academy Award for Best Actress, and critics hailed her as a new kind of leading lady, one who didn't fit the typical mold. But success came at a price. While everyone saw her as confident and carefree, Diane secretly battled severe self-esteem issues. The pressure to look perfect on screen pushed her into a dangerous cycle of dieting and self-criticism. She began comparing herself to other actresses and questioning her worth. Even at the height of fame, she felt empty inside. The applause and awards couldn't fill the emotional void that had been growing for years. Fame had given her everything, except happiness. Diane once admitted that behind her laughter, she often felt like an imposter, pretending to be strong when she was falling apart inside. Few people knew that behind her bright smile, Diane Keaton was struggling with a serious eating disorder. During the early years of her career, she developed bulimia, a condition where a person eats excessively and then purges to control weight. What started as a way to stay camera-ready soon became an uncontrollable addiction. Diane would binge on massive amounts of food, then feel an overwhelming sense of guilt. She later described it as living in a prison created by her own thoughts. For years, she hid this secret from everyone, afraid that people would see her as weak or unstable. The constant cycle of binging and purging damaged her physically and emotionally. Her self-worth became tied to her appearance, and every time she looked in the mirror, she saw someone she didn't recognize. Despite the pain, she kept working, smiling for cameras, and pretending everything was fine. It took her years to accept that she needed help. When she finally sought therapy, it was the beginning of a long journey toward healing. But the scars never fully disappeared. The disorder left her body fragile and her heart heavy with regret. Diane Keaton's love life was as complicated as her career was successful. She was deeply involved with some of Hollywood's biggest names, including Woody Allen, Warren Beatty, and Al Pacino. Each relationship began with passion and admiration, but none lasted. With Woody Allen, she found both creative and emotional fulfillment, but their romance ended when his focus shifted toward his own life and controversies. With Warren Beatty, she was fascinated by his charisma, but struggled to keep up with his fame-driven lifestyle. Then came Al Pacino, the man she once described as the love of her life. Their on-and-off relationship lasted for years, but Al was not ready for commitment. Diane longed for marriage and family, while he valued freedom and career. When their relationship finally ended, she was heartbroken. That breakup changed her view of love forever. She later admitted that she had spent too much time trying to be what others wanted, instead of being true to herself. From that point on, Diane chose to stay single, raising her adopted children alone and focusing on her own growth. She often said that she found peace not in romance, but in motherhood. Behind the fame, Diane's personal life was marked by deep family pain. Her mother, who had once inspired her to dream big, was later diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. Watching her mother's memory fade was devastating. Diane, who had always been close to her, described it as losing her piece by piece. This experience made her reflect on her own life, the choices she made, the people she lost, and the time she could never get back. It also deepened her fear of loneliness. As her siblings built their own families, Diane began to feel isolated. She had fame, money, and a beautiful home, but she often felt empty. In interviews, she confessed that she sometimes regretted not marrying or having children earlier. Yet she also admitted that she was scared of vulnerability. The walls she built to protect herself from heartbreak also kept her from real connection. Still, she tried to stay strong for her adopted children, Dexter, Duke, and Harper. Becoming a mother in her 50s gave her new purpose. She poured her love into her kids, determined to give them the security and affection she had always craved herself. As Diane got older, her health began to decline. Years of emotional stress and unhealthy habits had taken their toll. In her later years, she faced one of the toughest battles of her life: a diagnosis of skin cancer. The sun exposure from years of filming and outdoor shoots caught up with her, and she had to undergo multiple treatments to remove cancerous cells. It was a painful and frightening experience, but Diane faced it with quiet courage. She once said that the experience made her realize how fragile life truly is. Though she survived, the illness left her weak and changed. Her hands trembled, and her energy levels dropped. Friends noticed that she appeared more fragile in public appearances, yet she always smiled through the pain. Behind the cameras, she was struggling to stay positive. Her once vibrant presence began to fade, but she refused to give up. She continued to work on projects, write books, and mentor young actors. Her determination inspired many, proving that even in suffering, Diane Keaton remained a symbol of grace and strength. In her later life, Diane often spoke about loneliness. Despite her success, she admitted that she spent most evenings alone, reading or writing. She once said that solitude had become both her comfort and her curse. She had built a life that was safe, but also quiet and empty. Many of her friends had passed away, and her children had grown up and moved out. The big house that once echoed with laughter now felt silent. She looked back on her life with mixed emotions: gratitude for her achievements, but also sadness for the love she lost and the time she could never reclaim. Still, she didn't want pity. Diane said she found beauty in aging and believed that growing old was a privilege. Yet those close to her noticed that her spark was fading. She appeared tired, often reflective, and sometimes withdrawn. As health problems increased, she began spending more time at home, away from the spotlight. For someone who had once captured the world's attention, her quiet withdrawal was heartbreaking to see. In her final days, Diane Keaton's health declined further. The years of stress, emotional pain, and illness caught up with her body. Friends described her as peaceful but fragile. She continued to write in her journal, reflecting on her life, the highs and lows, the fame and the heartbreak. Her children stayed close, offering love and support. Diane reportedly spent her last days surrounded by family photos, letters, and mementos from her career. She often said that her greatest joy was not her movies or awards, but her children's laughter. When the end came, she faced it with grace. She had lived a life full of contradictions: fame and loneliness, laughter and pain, success and sorrow. But even as her body grew weak, her spirit remained strong. Diane Keaton left behind more than just movies. She left behind lessons about resilience, imperfection, and the courage to be human. Her passing was felt deeply across Hollywood and beyond. Fans mourned not just an actress. Even after decades in Hollywood, Diane Keaton never truly escaped the pressure to look perfect. The entertainment world often celebrated her individuality, but behind that praise was an unspoken expectation that she must never age, never slow down, and never show weakness. As years passed, Diane struggled with the reflection she saw in the mirror. The woman staring back at her wasn't the young actress who once charmed millions. Wrinkles, gray hair, and frailty replaced the vibrant image she once projected. Though she publicly joked about aging and even embraced her silver hair, privately she confessed that it frightened her. She feared becoming invisible, forgotten by an industry that worships youth. In interviews, she often spoke with bittersweet honesty, saying that she was grateful to still be alive but often felt like a stranger to herself. Her humor became her shield, a way to hide the sadness she didn't want others to see. Even as her body weakened, she kept dressing in her signature style, wearing her hats and turtlenecks like armor. It was her way of holding on to dignity and identity in a world that had always demanded perfection. For many, fame is a dream. But for Diane, it became both a blessing and a burden. She loved her craft, but the attention that came with it made her anxious. She once described fame as a mirror that distorts, showing only what people want to see, not who you really are. As her celebrity status grew, her sense of privacy disappeared. Paparazzi followed her everywhere, and gossip columns often speculated about her relationships, her looks, and her mental health. While fans adored her eccentricity, few realized how deeply lonely she often felt. She didn't enjoy the red carpets or the endless interviews. What she loved was the art, acting, storytelling, and connecting with characters who helped her express the emotions she couldn't always voice in real life. But Hollywood rarely allows its stars to just be human. Every mistake, every flaw became a headline. Diane's fame was built on authenticity, yet that very honesty sometimes made her a target. Despite that, she never pretended to be someone else. She stayed true to her offbeat charm and refused to undergo cosmetic surgery, saying, "I earned my face. Every line tells a story." In a world obsessed with appearances, that courage made her stand apart. After a lifetime of fame, Diane began to quietly step away from the spotlight. Her appearances became rare, and her once busy schedule slowed down. She preferred spending time at home, surrounded by books, artwork, and her dogs. She developed a deep love for photography and architecture, often photographing old buildings and forgotten places. These hobbies gave her peace, a creative outlet without the pressure of public judgment. During this time, she also began writing memoirs, reflecting on her life with raw honesty. In her books, she opened up about her insecurities, family struggles, and the fear of growing old alone. Her words resonated deeply with readers, especially women who saw themselves in her vulnerability. She wasn't afraid to talk about topics that many celebrities avoided: loneliness, regret, and aging. But even as she found new ways to express herself, Diane's health continued to decline. The effects of years of emotional turmoil and illness became harder to hide. Yet she rarely complained. She often said that suffering was a part of life, and what mattered most was how one chose to face it. Her quiet strength inspired those who knew her, even as she slowly faded from the public eye. In her later years, Diane often looked back on her life with mixed emotions. She had achieved everything most people dream of: fame, respect, and financial security. Yet she couldn't escape the feeling that something was missing. She once admitted that her biggest regret was not allowing herself to be loved fully. "I was afraid of intimacy," she said. "I was always waiting for something to go wrong." That fear had followed her since childhood, shaping her relationships and decisions. She poured her energy into her work and her children, but often felt like she was watching life from the outside. Still, she didn't let regret define her. She chose to see her mistakes as lessons, and believed that every experience, even the painful ones, made her who she was. Diane also found redemption through her art. Acting had always been her way of understanding herself, and in her final years, she saw it as a form of therapy. Her later performances carried a deeper emotional truth, drawn from a lifetime of joy and sorrow. She once said, "Maybe I wasn't meant to have a perfect life. Maybe I was meant to tell the truth about an imperfect one." Those words became her legacy, a reminder that even broken lives can be beautiful. When news of Diane Keaton's passing spread, Hollywood mourned deeply. Co-stars, directors, and fans shared stories of her kindness, humor, and brilliance. Woody Allen called her one of the most genuine souls I ever knew, while Al Pacino described her as the heart of an era. Younger actors said they admired how she refused to conform to Hollywood standards. Her death was felt not only as the loss of a great actress, but also as the end of a certain kind of honesty in filmmaking. In a world that often values glamour over truth, Diane represented something real. Television networks replayed her most iconic films, and social media filled with clips of her unforgettable scenes, laughing, crying, dancing, and just being unapologetically herself. But beyond the spotlight, her family and close friends knew a different Diane. The quiet woman who loved old houses, collected memories, and always worried about others more than herself. They remembered her as funny, caring, and endlessly curious. Even in her final years, she never stopped learning, never stopped dreaming. Her death reminded the world that behind every Hollywood legend is a human story, fragile, beautiful, and heartbreakingly real. Diane Keaton's influence continues to touch lives long after her passing. Her impact goes beyond movies. It's about the way she lived and the courage she showed in being herself. She taught people that it's okay to be different, to age naturally, and to show your flaws. Many actresses today credit Diane for paving the way for women to have complex, powerful roles on screen. Before her, Hollywood rarely